Welcome back to JB Reviews. I have a 2025 Chevy and Ford dually. Now in this video I'm going to compare a Lariat and High Country trim level. Now I know some of you guys are not going to like this, but listen, these trucks are basically the exact same price when it comes down to MSRP. I borrowed these trucks from Jerry Seiner Chevrolet here in Salt Lake City and Ken Garf Ford here in West Valley. Be sure to check out the commercial department, ask for Ken, and be sure to ask for a Zyda at the Chevy store. Let's go ahead and check out the pricing and break down these two trim levels. Now for the Ford, here are the specs, in case you want to see what color this is, which is Avalanche. Also, here are all the options. I'm not going to go through each one, but Lariat Ultimate Package kind of makes this a competitor with the High Country. Now as far as base price goes, $67,730. This truck has $22,000 in options basically. With destination you're at $91,490. For the Chevy, I'm going to show this to you guys online. Base price for this truck is $76,100, and here are all the options on this one. So it is missing one package on here, which is like the High Country Deluxe Ultimate, whatever they call it. I can't remember off the top of my head, but has a tech package which gives a lot of nice features there. And with destination, this truck is $91,685. When it comes down to the Lariat trim level, yes, this does not compete with the High Country. And some people would probably say that I would have to get a Platinum. Now here's something I would consider. If I were to do this apples and apples, I would not use a Chevy, because Chevy is kind of held back by GMC. Let's just be honest here. If I were to get a Platinum, then I would probably go over to the GMC store and get a Denali. If I were to get a Platinum Plus, then I would go over to the GMC store again and get the Ultimate Package Denali, because that would be more apples to apples. But because these trucks are very close when it comes down to options and features, that's why I think this is a good comparison, especially after seeing the MSRP. And there's a few things missing on this Ford truck that would drive that price up. But let's go ahead and get started on the front end. You guys can see here, this truck does have the LED headlights standard with Lariat trim. Also, if you get a Lariat, unfortunately you would have to move up to a higher trim level if you want it painted bumpers, but the Ultimate Package does give it the parking sensors on the front end. It also has a camera right here, and overall this truck has a really nice design. I know some people say that this is not as good as the 2022, but this has that more rugged look compared to that 2022 outgoing truck. Now for Chevy, this truck did get a refresh in 2024. Well, it was 2023, but they got it for the 2024 model year, and it definitely did clean up the front end. And with this High Country, they do give you this satin finish on the grille right here. You do have some bright chrome in that center part of it right there. Painted bumpers come standard, front parking sensors come standard, and you do have a little bit more of that satin finish down below here. So the benefit that I see on this one, you do have the painted bumper standard, and it does have the projector beam headlights. Now if you were to get a Platinum truck, you could get the painted bumpers standard just like on this High Country. The only difference is you're going to increase that price by $8,000 right out of the gate. Let's talk about the wheels and tires for a second. On the Chevy, you do have an 18-inch wheel compared to the 17-inch wheel on the Ford. You cannot upgrade this wheel. Now, if I were to have an LTZ trim level here today, that truck is an option with these 18. So in a sense, these trucks are pretty identical, and I would say this, I would much prefer this design over the 17s that come standard on the LTZ trim level. So this one has the Michelin LTX AT2s, and the tire size, I believe, is a 245/75. Yep, 75/17. It has capacity right here. It's going to be 3,195 pounds, 2910 for dual, 80 psi cold. That won't change for the capacity for either tire. Now this is going to be the Michelin Primacy XC, so not as aggressive as you can see on that Ford there, but they have an off-road look to them for sure. But I love the larger wheel, and this tire size is a LT 235/80/18. So I like the fact that both trucks use Michelin tires. These are great tires for sure. You guys see it has a fabric material for the liner that's going to be on both sides. Now the only advantage for most guys out there, Ford does use a solid front axle. I'm on my 4th GM truck. I've had a dually. The independent front suspension's fine. I don't really notice a huge difference between the two trucks. They both ride pretty darn good. I am going to be doing a drive video between these trucks with MPG, so be sure to subscribe to the channel. Now, as far as the mirrors go, it depends on what you're looking for. I like that both trucks have the power function for tow mode. They power fold on both sides. They also have the lights for stationary usage too. Now, the only advantage that Chevy gives you, they do give you these backup lights for your trailer, which is nice, or if you're just backing up the truck into your garage and you just need more light. They both have the 360 camera view. They both basically have mud flaps on the front. You do get a little bit more design here for the High Country. Now you guys see here, this is a negative with the High Country. You still get fixed running boards standard. However, on this Ford, you have the power to the pullable running boards. And one advantage that Ford has over GM, when you do add the power to pullable running boards here, you don't have the function where when you have the key in your pocket, they come down when you get closer to the truck. I love that about the Ford trucks. Cannot get that with Chevy, however. As far as the beds go, they both have the bed steps. Very controversial for the Ford truck, however. A lot of guys on the Ford side hate these steps, and I don't know why. I think they look fine. It's a truck. It's supposed to have that functionality, you know, for it too, and GM was first to market with that. And I will say, I was going to do a separate video on this, but I'm just going to tell you now, I like the Fords better only because, you know, in the snow just kind of sits up in here, right? And when you go to spray this out with a power washer, all that stuff comes back and splatter at you on the GM trucks. But on the Ford, see how it can fall through on the sides here? This was built and designed great. So GM, when you go to redesign, you need to copy Ford again. Now, here's the biggest advantage on the Ford truck. I'm just going to tell you now, GM needs to fix this. I did a video on it. You get a 48-gallon fuel tank standard with this truck, okay? 7.4 gallon DEF. That comes standard. On the Chevy, this has a standard 36-gallon tank, 7-gallon DEF. And I think that GM really needs to add at least an option. Ram did an option for a 50-gallon fuel tank, and I'm pretty sure they have room to at least get another 7 or 8 gallons. They don't have to be 48. If it was like 45 gallons, I think that I would be okay with that too. Like, even though obviously Ford would have more, but I could say that this truck has an upgraded fuel tank for the long bed truck. That would make more sense. Now, both trucks out back do have LED lights. Now, on this side, you guys can probably see there, you do have an incandescent reverse light there, but the rest of the bulbs inside of here are LED. On this side, you have LED for the reverse light, but everything else is incandescent bulbs, which is really funny. Love that. Out back, you can see the steps on the back here. Parking sensors, class 5 hitches. They do give you the camera inputs right here. And one thing I like about the Chevy, you do have an option to get a multi-flex tailgate, which pretty much drops down into a step for you and has a lot of other functionalities. You have your 4 and 7 pin, you have your bed lights, fifth wheel prep package. They do provide 2 cameras above and 400 watts of power. Now, if you want to put this back up, you have that option too. On the Ford side, now this is assisted, it's not going to be powered though. So that's where you would have to get a platinum trim level, right? And then in that case, yes, you would have that functionality. You do have a step here and a handle, so that would pretty much compete with that multi-flex tailgate. Also, you have a 12-way plug here. I'm sorry, 7-pin plug, and then 12-way here for your video. Spray-in bed liner, you know, that is something you see a lot missing on Ford trucks. and it's because of the production. It does slow it down in some cases, but I don't think that's the case now. Even at $91,000, when you add that, it's another 600 bucks basically. Also, Ford does have the advantage here when you have the 2 kilowatts of power. It is an option, and the only negative thing is if you don't get that, unfortunately, you don't get any power in the bed, which is kind of a letdown here. But as I said, you don't have any power going back up. But if you get a Platinum, you would. There's your spare for the Chevy, matching tire with a Steely. Same thing goes for the inners. Your inners are going to be Steelies too. You also have a 342 rear end with a locker. Nice. On this side of the house, you're going to have pretty much the same setup here. That looks to be the Michelin tire, right? I can't really see actually. Yep, that's a Michelin tire. Steel wheel, and the inner wheels are going to be steel too. 355 comes standard. 410 is an option. Now, here's what I'll tell you. I like the idea of having a 410. Obviously, that's going to be max tow. That is correct. But the other advantage you have with the 410 is if you do want to run taller tires, you're not changing the gearing so much on the truck, right? And that's something I would like to see from Chevy, is at least offer like a 355 or 373 option for the dualies at the very least. So all in all, both trucks have, as you can see here, a lot of advantages and disadvantages on both sides. I have to mention the dually side for the Fords. If you were to damage this, the good news is this comes off and you can replace it. On Chevy's side, if you damage this bed, you're using Bondo or you're replacing the bed. So I do like the fact that Ford thought that through, to have that be replaced if it does get damaged. And something else to consider too, on the Chevys, you do have spray and bed liner pretty much standard across the board, especially when you get the 5th wheel prep package. That is a huge selling point for me on the Chevy side. If I had to go buy a truck tomorrow, I always order everything I get because I'm very picky. But if I need to go get a truck tomorrow, I can rest assured that every Chevy truck, especially on the higher trim levels, or if it has 5th wheel prep package, is going to have it. Versus on the Ford side, even when you have 5th wheel prep package, they still don't give you spray and bed liner. So that's something that GM has just done well. Now with the FX4 package, you do get a skid plate for that fuel tank. Unfortunately for the Chevy, you don't have a skid plate for that fuel tank. They do give you one, however, for the transfer case up there. And for the Ford, they do also have a skid plate right there too. When it comes down to horsepower and torque, Ford is on top of the world. There's no denying it. But I will say, I like Chevy's simplicity. They have 2 engine options and you know what you're going to get. Let's start off with the gas engine. That does come standard even on the high country. It's going to have 401 horsepower, 464 pound-feet of torque, and now it has the 10-speed stamp-approved Allison behind it. So those numbers are pretty good. On the Ford side of the house, Ford has the 7.3. Now for 2025, the 6.8 liter does now come standard. So you want to know something funny? Chevy has the advantage on the gas engine. Although if you want to pay $1,000 more, you do have that 7.3, which would be class leading across the board for gas engines. Now you do have 2 diesel options for this side of the house. And that's why I said earlier, this is a very complicated purchase, because if you don't want the 6.8 liter and that's all they have, well, that's what you got to get. Now, the standard output power stroke has 475 horsepower, 1,050 pound-feet of torque. So it is beating out this truck just on the standard output. And then when you add this high output, it's going to be 500 horsepower and 1,200 pound-feet of torque. Now I just did a 0 to 60 and MPG run with both of these trucks before I did this test, because I didn't know my time scale today, but I have a little time and that's why I'm doing this test here. Which truck do you guys think won? I'll be posting that video probably really shortly after this one. Now on this side, yes, outgunned by both diesel options. But hey, 470 horsepower, 975 pound-feet of torque ain't nothing to scoff at. Has a 12-inch ring gear, and I feel like these trucks don't have as much torque management compared to Ram and Ford trucks. So we'll have to wait and see how these trucks perform side by side to see if that's actually the case. One last thing to mention, Chevy does give you a functional hood scoop. When it comes down to the interiors, as I said, this was not really a comparison for that. I only did it because they were dualies, number one, and they were very close to pricing. Now on this side you do have a 10-way seat, and as I said, on the outside you have all these power functions for the mirrors and seat memories. You have 2. On this side you do have a tilt and telescoping steering wheel, manually operated. You don't have power pedals, which I would like to see. But here's all your buttons. You do have auto four-wheel drive, some of your lighting controls, heads-up display can be controlled on the outside of a screen. And look at these leather seats. You have 3 to choose from. If you don't like this interior color, you do have other ones to choose from. You even have a blue interior that I like too. I actually own that interior color. Let's go ahead and check out the Ford next. We'll start on the door. Ford does have one of the best mid trims in the segment. The Lariat is truly one of the best. It's so good, I'm willing to put it up against a high country from the Chevy side of the house. Now with that being said, you guys see right there, you have 3 seat memories. You have the same functions for the mirrors that you saw. Auto up and down for the front windows, just like that Chevy, but Chevy gives you auto down, but you have to hold it going back up. Ford makes you hold it up and down, out back. 10-way seat. Now for 2025, Ford decided they wanted to cut costs on the Lariat. So now you have ActiveX, which is dubbed basically vegan leather, basically. It is more durable, as I've said in other videos. Also, they took away your power steering column. See, Ford, when I did this video, if you had these features, I would have been able to say, man, like even on Chevy's highest trim level, they don't give you a power steering column. But the Ford's 3rd highest trim level does have that, but not in this video. I can't do that. But you still have the power pedals down below, which is not available for the Chevy side of the house, or even the GMC side of the house either. Apart from that, one of the biggest successes in this truck is that twin panel moonroof. Like on Chevys, they only give you just your standard sunroof. That's it. I do like the fact that you have a black liner in this truck. Now if you get a platinum, you would have the same, and Chevy doesn't have the availability to have massage front seats. Again, that's why I said the GMC Denali and Denali Ultimate really do compete better with those higher trim level Ford trucks. So yes, they both have the center console. They do have class leading screens right here. I also like GM's camera system better on this side. Let's go ahead and check it out on the Ford side first, and then I'll show you on the GM side. Now the first thing I'm going to show you guys is the heads-up display though. So on this, shows you the time and temperature, and something else that Ford has as an advantage. And GM, if you're watching this video, I am beating up on your truck because I'm trying to get you guys to do some big changes next year. But yeah, you got to have this on every truck. Every truck should have minimum this stuff here. Temperatures. Also, this boost gauge, not to be found on any Chevy GMC truck, which is crazy to me. And they give you auxiliary gauges like this. Now on this side, this is where things kind of go downhill for the Ford. I hate their camera system. So if you want to see your bed view camera, and oh cool, now I've already seen what I need to see. Oh, now that menu goes away. I just like what GM has done. GM's is so much easier to use, and they're just better in every way when it comes down to the 360 camera. Also, you do have a dual stage exhaust brake, so you have on and then you have automatic. Let's go ahead and check out this Chevy. Chevy's heads-up display is definitely lacking. They don't show you the time and the temperature like the Ford does. They both do show you the speed limit up there too, and then after a while that goes away because you had to pay for it. But on this screen you don't have the same features. I do like that you can add, like, you know, these little widgets inside of there, so you can see your tire pressure. Also you can see the transmission temp, but you can't see the oil temp and the coolant temp. They show it to you down there with the analog gauges, but no one cares about that. We want to see numbers. On this side of the house, they do have the largest screen here right now until Rams come out this year. And this is the 360. So you see how you have this menu down here? It's just so easy. If you want your 360 camera view off on that side, boom, you can do that. And swipe over to the bed view, boom. It's just easy. It just makes sense. This menu doesn't go away when you hit a button on it. It's just so much better. But yeah, both trucks have dual climate control, heated and ventilated seats, heated steering wheel, and they both have the wireless charger. Let's go ahead and talk about the towing numbers, because that's going to be important for this video. When it comes down to the rear suspension, this is something that I love about the Chevy trucks. They do give you 4 leafs in the main pack there, that bottom one being a helper spring, and then you have these 3 overloads here. So on the Ford side, they have 4 leafs in that main pack there, and they only give you 1 overload. So when I show you guys the numbers, I want you to keep that in mind. By the way, you guys saw the liner. I didn't show this to you earlier, but yeah, they don't give you one further back. Although on the Chevy side, for 2025, now these trucks are showing up with the liners out back, but the 24s, you didn't see these pretty often. Here are the numbers on the door for the Chevy. 6,000 pound gross axle weight rating, 10.4 in the rear, 14,000 pound GVWR, and then all in payload is 5,207 pounds, 20,000 pound conventional towing, 31,000 for gooseneck and 5th wheel. Let's go ahead and check it out for the Ford. Front gross axle weight rating is going to be 5,600 pounds. The rear is only 9,900 pounds, but they still have the same GVWR. All in, 5,422 pounds of payload. So yes, the Ford is always going to win on payload. Not always, but typically they will, because of the aluminum bodies that they have. Now, I hope you guys like this video. One of the most important things about towing is that rear axle. And I've seen guys towing 45-foot toy haulers exceeding that number on Ram trucks. I think Ram is like 9750, so Ford's a little bit higher, but that 10.4 is a game changer, and that is where GM definitely does win. Now, I think a lot of it has to do with their suspension out back too. Obviously, they do have a little bit more overbuilt suspension compared to the Ford trucks. But what do you guys think? Which truck is the better buy? I think that if I were using my money, I think I would probably go with the Chevy, simply because it just has more for the money. Like, if you think about standard features, you got to add a lot of features to the Lariat, and then once you go up to a Platinum, again, you're going to jump the price up, you know, past where this Chevy is. But in the future, if I do have a chance to get an F350 Platinum and I have a high country, or if I get a GMC Denali Ultimate, maybe I'll put those trucks up together so you guys can see a fair comparison. Again, I really want to show the dually side by side, because it's really hard for me to get these trucks together, and I got it done. So hope you guys liked the video. Be sure to subscribe to the channel. Make sure your bell notifications are on. See you guys soon.